The following program includes graphic images and mature subject matter intended for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Earlier this season, we brought you an exclusive report about a former policeman in New Brunswick who sexually abused dozens of children. His name was Ken Estabrooks, and for more than 25 years, he committed his crimes right under the noses of city police and politicians. As a result of our 16x9 investigation, city officials revealed that the number of abused children was much higher than anyone had imagined. Well, tonight, for the first time, we're able to put a face to one of those victims as he shares his story with our Jennifer Tryon.
I'm going to go someplace now, you see.
The memories take them back to childhood nightmares.
Close your eyes and think of something else.
They are survivors of one of Canada's worst pedophiles.
I did all the sexual acts to him.
Sexually assaulted decades ago in St. John, New Brunswick.
I've seen people turn to alcohol. I've seen them turn to drugs. I did that myself. I mean, kids were being raped on the street.
They told 16x9 their stories anonymously, just voices, behind walls of secrecy and pain that will never go away.
It's like a broken picture in my head, that a film that just keeps never ending. It keeps playing over and over.
To rape a child that's full of spirit and adventure and trust is just cruel. It's just horrible. It shouldn't happen to kids.
Their abuser, a police officer named Kenneth Estabrooks.
Ken Estabrooks was as sadistic an offender as I've come across in over 35 years of doing this.
Dave Perry has had a long career chasing sex offenders. First as a police officer, now a private investigator.
He simply, in the strongest terms, used his authority to falsely arrest, abduct, and confine people, and then sexually abuse them. That's what he did. I would say he was purely a hunter who would target children, and they were children at the time, from the poorest communities.
Most of Estabrooks' victims were from St. John's gritty South End, where families struggled with substance abuse and extreme poverty.
You know, as today you look back, it was open season for a pedophile. I mean, kids were everywhere.
This man, who we'll call Ryan, grew up here. All the kids knew Estabrooks was a man to avoid.
As a little kid, he was in a uniform. He was intimidating. He was a big man, and he wore a uniform, and that was power. We would yell at each other too. We would scream and say, "Here he comes! Let's go!"
Estabrooks snatched kids off the streets and abused them for decades until he was finally caught and convicted of 4 counts of indecent assault in 1999. He was released after serving his sentence in 2005 and died of cancer. But in 2012, a new complaint came forward.
It was learned that the allegations were against a former City of St. John police officer, Ken Estabrooks.
The city hired Dave Perry to investigate.
You recognize quite quickly when you're onto something that potentially is going to lead to something quite big.
At first, the city wouldn't say just how big the investigation was getting. But as 16x9's own investigation progressed over several months, it became clear there could be dozens, even hundreds of victims who had never told anyone what happened. And the stories they had to tell were chilling.
I was in Prince Charles School on Union Street. I can't remember if I jigged school that day, decided not to go, or just leave at lunch. I got maybe 15, 20 yards, maybe a little more, and he was coming. And he did a U-ey, and he told me to get in the car. I turned around and I bolted, flew. I still see the police car beside me. It was scary. After that, he remembered me. The stalking was very difficult to experience, not knowing if he was going to be around, looking behind you all the time. That was the terror.
It wasn't long before Estabrooks got Ryan in his car and took him down to a place called Tin Can Beach, a rocky, garbage-strewn piece of land with a nasty reputation.
He was touching me, he was touching himself, and I just went someplace.
And people knew what was going on?
People knew what was going on, yes.
How many confirmed victims are there?
Well, we're not going to talk about numbers. We're leaving that till the end of the investigation.
We've spoken to people who say they know 50 or 60.
Right. Well, he was a predator, and he operated in those neighborhoods for a lot of years.
16 by 9 learned the names of at least 40 victims, speaking to 10. But on September 30th, 2013, 2 days after our story aired, investigators came forward with shocking new numbers.
We've received information about 263 individuals that makes it reasonable for us to believe that they were exposed to and potentially sexually assaulted by Ken Estabrooks.
The case stunned the community. Still, the survivors were veiled in secrecy, but that was about to change.
Well, it's something that no one wanted to talk about, and no one wants to bring it up. And I said, you know what? Someone's going to be accountable now for what they did. And I said, someone is going to help us.
Next.
There's been suicides. You know, people have drank themselves to death.
Victims demand justice from City Hall.
Well, I wonder what they would have been today if no one would have come down and raped them, beat them up, and terrorized them.
The following program includes graphic images and mature subject matter intended for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey, buddy, how are ya? Come on.
It's a cold, icy January day, but the kids know that won't stop Bobby Hayes.
Okay, you hold my hand and I won't let you fall.
For more than 20 years, Bobby has taken it on himself to reach out to kids who have nobody else to rely on.
Hey, you guys coming to supper? I'll meet you at Cece's house, okay? See them running across? Okay, here we go.
Bobby is one of those guys. Everybody in St. John seems to know him.
Hey, Ugly. How you doing? Okay, Logie's next, and then Maddie and Kennedy, then over north.
He makes the rounds in the city's roughest neighborhoods.
This is a very low income. This is a real hard place. Come on, bud.
He takes them away to a different reality.
Right up for supper, guys. Right up, right up, right up. Come on, right inside, guys.
A place where they get a hot meal and forget their troubles, at least for a few hours a day. he's been doing this for more than 20 years, running the nonprofit Joshua Group on a shoestring.
My heart's right here. Yeah, right here with these guys. I get up in the morning, I go to bed at night, and I'm thinking of how they impact them. What can I do next, and how can I help them? I'm the happiest guy in the world, and I'm driving that bus and helping these kids.
He's sacrificed everything for these kids. His marriage broke up years ago because of the long hours he spends here.
I just couldn't leave them. It was almost like abandoning them, and they had nobody. And I know what that's like.
What nobody knew for years is that Bobby had a dark secret. He was viciously assaulted too by Kenneth Estabrooks when he was just a kid himself.
Last night I was driving down, I was going by, and I looked down Tin Can Beach, and it looked so scary. When you start to think about someone raping you, beating you up, pouring gas on you, urinating on you, following you, terrorizing you, showing you their gun, bullying you, harassing you, pick you up by the hair of your head, slam your head against a wall, and for that to go over and over and play through your mind, and for this man to undress you in the back of a police car or in the front seat and tell you to take your pants down. He ripped a part of my life that should have been, you know, and it still is. You know, he's dead. I'm still suffering. I'm still suffering.
Bobby grew up in Kenneth Estabrooks' hunting ground, the South End.
This street was just loaded with children.
He is among the 263 kids investigators suspect were chased and repeatedly assaulted by the former police sergeant.
When you seen him coming, if you were on this corner or the next corner, you would run up this way. It was easy pickings. Like, yeah, he didn't have to go too far. Little kids screaming in the back of a police car, you know, screaming, please, please, please let me out. There's been suicides. You know, people have drank themselves to death, drug overdoses, and the path of life that they've taken because of what's happened to them. I think of the guys, geez, you know, that I grew up with. Well, I wonder what they would have been today if no one would have come down and raped them, beat them up, and terrorized them. There's not too many of them that he never caught. That's the scary part. Who let this guy do this to a bunch of children?
Even now, the city's investigation is limited to identifying Estabrooks' victims and offering them counseling. But the story goes much deeper than that. Several victims told 16 by 9 police and politicians knew what Estabrooks was doing to kids and looked the other way.
And we'd say, you know, this guy is doing this to the kids. And they go, are you sure about that? And, you know, we put the message out there. But, of course, it was, you know, you protected your fellow officer.
Accountability is a big thing in this. Why would you let this stuff go on? Why would you allow? Right through City Hall.
Estabrooks actually confessed to assaulting 2 boys in 1975. But instead of laying charges, the police chief had him transferred to a new job, repairing tires on city vehicles. As of right now, there are no plans to investigate who might have been involved in covering up Estabrooks' crimes.
There may come a day where some of those questions have to be answered, but that will be for somebody else.
But there still may be a way to get to the truth. In December, Bobby decided to step up for the kids again. He's fronting a class action lawsuit against the city of St. John and its police department.
I'd like my friends to get proper help and these guys to be looked after. Instead of sitting there day after day thinking about a man raping you.
There's not a point in time where we stop being victims.
When we used to go to bed at night in these tenements, there was two sayings. One, don't let the bed bugs bite. And they bit us. And the other was, don't let the boogeyman get you. And he got us.
He's doing it for the survivors and for others who didn't make it, but also for himself.
The anger that I have towards these people for allowing this man to do what he's done to me is unbelievable. It's scary. It's like a poison. It's in my system. This isn't the person I am. I'm embarrassed. I had to tell my children and my mom and dad. I had to go over to my house and say, Dad, I'm one of the kids. And I remember him putting his head down and looking at the floor and shaking his head and saying, oh my God.
Next.
I've experienced both physical and mental abuse.
Turning to horses to break his cycle of abuse.
She said equine therapy, and that got my attention.